There are no good choices left. It's either we subsidize this to the tune of billions forever and ever, or we restructure it, which will cost billions to restructure and downsize and compensate those people, and downsize it by 60, 70%, 80%.
We have some pretty damning updates from Statistics Canada. You know, the thing I've learned about being labeled far right, which is just the most ridiculous brainwashing label of all time, is that, you know, we actually do end up being completely right. It usually just takes a few months until everybody else ends up admitting it. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, and comment your thoughts down below. Whether or not you like the guy, there is nothing that is a bigger glaring image into how big of a failure this Liberal government is than, I hate to say it, but Donald Trump. We'll get into that and something that he just passed. There's also another lie that Mark Carney told that, we shouldn't be sleeping on this one. We need to call him out for it. So we're going to be fact checking that. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
Canada is not broken. Alberta is not broken. And Alberta's New Democrats are proud Canadians. There are things that could be better, but we still live in the greatest nation ever created. And this nation, unlike almost every nation in the world, is based on a simple tenet that everybody belongs and that every single one of us not only has the opportunity to build something here, but has the right to thrive here. Let's not break that.
I didn't expect to be getting fired up so early on, but you're welcome, I guess, or sorry. I'm actually quite tired of people on the left, NDPs, Greens, Liberals, the radicals over there. I'm really tired of them being like, oh, whoa, you said Canada's broken. Canada's not broken. Yeah, let's not forget that. And it's like, bro, that's the whole thing, though. That's why we're screaming from the rooftops about this, because Canada is broken. Things are going very, very wrong here, and we want to go back to that beautiful country that you described earlier on there. Like, no, we aren't going to be complacent. No, we aren't going to shut up. Yes, we want our country to be exactly what it was before so many things happened that just decimated our identity, that decimated our economy, our livelihood, our quality of living. That's what we want.
It was Lincoln who said, I stand with a man when he stands right, and I stand against him when he stands wrong. So let's see what the government does. The previous government, to be frank, was a disaster. And so we had every reason to oppose basically everything they did. But here we are, a few weeks after the election, where 8 million people vested their hopes in me to deliver for them. And the best way I can do that is put forward good ideas that will make their housing affordable and their food affordable, let their streets be safe, give them a chance at growing paychecks. So when we put forward good ideas and the government accepts them, then we're going to be celebrating. Where the government acts against the interests of the country, then we will fight tooth and nail to stop them. So we will fight for the 8 million people who voted for us. And we will work with anyone that will deliver gains for those people, because we're in it for them and for all Canadians.
We are in a very interesting situation, one that historically in this country is pretty rare. This might be the first that this sequence of events that transpired did. I mean, we had the House essentially blocked, stalled, whatever you want to call it, after the Green Slush Fund scandal. Funny enough, Francois-Philippe Champagne was actually one of the people who was the head of that, and now he's our finance minister, so that's just awesome for us. But then, we had Justin Trudeau's resignation, prorogation, a Liberal leadership race, an election. Now we are going to have the House sitting again for a very brief period of time, and then they're going on summer vacation, which, by the way, there's no reason at all that they need to go on summer vacation. As Mark Carney has said, we're in the crisis of our lifetime. Clearly, that's not the case, because if it was, they would not be going for summer vacation and sitting for 16% of the year. The Carney Liberals and the Trudeau Liberals prior to him were doing things and approving things and promising things, even though there was no representation, even though House wasn't sitting, there was no debate, but they were still doing these things anyway. And how they did them was due to the Governor General. So Table Salt wrote this, and there's been a number of people now jumping on board, people who are far more educated in this than I am. But I will say I haven't personally really dug into this, compared all of the notes, compared the guise of which certain spending was permitted. But this is just what we have right now. And it shows here, the Governor Governor General of Canada is not even supposed to authorize special warrant spending when Parliament is prorogued, but she is doing it under an urgent requirement for public good. Now, to give them benefit of the doubt, not every single thing that was approved under this measure was all terrible. There was funding that was allocated to, CSIS as an example, and also $150 million to the CBC. I guess that's a public good. Alrighty then. But there's also some other things in there that are just really, really fascinating, such as the Liberal government giving Michelin nearly $45 million to make tires for electric vehicles. Meanwhile, in 2024, Michelin's North American sales were $11.5 billion. When Canadians aren't even buying EVs and all of our EV operations in Canada are absolutely crumbling, they're actually pretty well non-existent outside of being subsidized by the government in order to keep them alive. Is that a public good? Yeah, I don't think so. We also have here in Section 53 on appropriation and tax bills, it says bills for appropriating any part of the public revenue or for imposing any tax or impost shall originate in the House of Commons. Section 53 is found in part whatever the heck that is. I haven't watched 300 in a while, so I don't remember, of the Constitutional Act. 1867. Dealing with federal legislative power. It has not been amended since the act was enacted in 1867. So Marty up north writes here, this is a gross violation of our Constitution and an abuse of the use of orders of council. No one should be okay with this. Section 53 of the Constitutional Act ensures that no spending can occur without the approval of the House of Commons in Canada. And it also states that bills for appropriating any part of the public revenue or for imposing any tax or impost must originate in the House of Commons. This establishes the principle of no taxation without representation and ensures that the elected representatives in the House of Commons have control over government spending and taxation. We haven't had proper fiscal oversight in Canada in at least 3 years.
Canada is not broken.
I have to say that it's quite ironic that Canada is the host of the G7 summit, which starts today in Kananaskis, as Canada has measured the largest increase in government spending and debt burden among G7 countries and nearly the highest among advanced countries over the last 10 years.
In his opinion, for Canada Post,
there are no good choices left. It's either we subsidize this to the tune of billions forever and ever, or we restructure it, which will cost billions to restructure and downsize and compensate those people, and downsize it by 60, 70%, 80% to focus on a parcel post company that delivers to the rural and remote communities that do not have private courier service. That's where I envisage, if there is a restructuring, Canada Post will go. It'll become the courier of last resort.
Now, the union says it is still willing to go back to the bargaining table. It wants to create a fair collective agreement. And Heather, it is urging Canada Post to do the same.
When you take a look at the Canadian economy, does it really surprise you that people are not that happy? Like, is it really shocking? Because to me, it actually isn't at all. Just as an example, Canadian food prices have rocketed up in April as tariffs start to kick in, up 3.8% this year. Remember when Mark Carney said that he's going to make sure that it does maximum damage with minimal impact? I wonder how that's going. And it's no wonder why Canadians are suffering as much as they are, why our debt is out of control, because the government, rather than change course, rather than admit defeat, rather than say, yeah, that's not working and you're right, Conservatives, we should probably just repeal things like Bill C-69, the government is saying, no, we can't admit defeat. We have to make sure that these things work. Even with, Canada Post as an example, wasn't it $1 billion that they received in a subsidy? That seems to be how the Liberal government operates. They pretend it's a mirage, that things are working very well because they are subsidizing all of these failed industries.
Canada didn't lose its democracy overnight. It rotted slowly through bureaucratic failure, media silence, and political convenience until the 2025 federal election exposed what many already suspected. The system isn't broken, it's rigged, decaying, and no longer even pretending to function.
And let's not forget the fact that the government has done nothing at all to lower their spending. The government spending is almost the entirety of all of our problems, actually. And even while running this election campaign saying that we're going to build a new economy, which doesn't exist, it's a theory and it's literally just nothing. Like, you're literally telling people you're going to do nothing because you have no actual solid ideas other than theories and mandates in order to push your ideological goals that do not work. I mean, honestly, Michelin is such an excellent example of that, because you have a company that is wildly successful. They are thriving. They are making good money. And Michelin, if they saw the need, if they saw a market that was reasonable, that was a good business decision for EV tires, they do that because it would make them more money, right? But the government instead is enforcing mandates saying, hey, we want you to do this, so we're going to pay you to do this so that it seems as though there's this big demand and big market, because we want there to be this big demand and big market that doesn't exist. So Michelin is like, oh, sure, yeah, we'll take $11 billion. Heck yeah. Sure, yeah, we'll totally invest in all of those EV tires for you.
Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me. I have been involved in major energy projects for over 3 decades. Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me. I have been involved in major energy projects for over 3 decades.
Extensive experience in major energy projects for over 3 decades. Why haven't those things phased out oil? Why haven't they phased out gas then, if that's true, and that you're doing all of these amazing things that make you worthy of admiration? You're doing them under the public good. Let's go through some of that experience, shall we? Because obviously we know Bank of Canada governor, same with Bank of England. Actually, it's kind of interesting because in Canada from 2008 to 2013, Carney's role was to oversee monetary policy, some of which he did during the global financial crisis, and indirectly stabilizing markets tied to commodities like oil, funny enough. In Bank of England, though, he actually really helped to mainstream the concept of climate-related financial risk and encouraged firms to disclose exposure to fossil fuels. Now, why would you do that unless, of course, it was allegedly so that your business could go out and poach those people? If you have all of that public information, that's going to make your side hustle that much more lucrative, isn't it? It's something I said this months ago on the show, but even if Mark Carney is prime minister for a month, the access that he would have to different businesses, organizations, companies, countries, whatever, and their emissions, the things that he is deeply invested in, he would have access to all of that data that he wouldn't otherwise have. And that is an absolute gold mine for somebody who has made their millions off of influencing government policy and still holds investments off of things that influence government policy, allegedly. Then we have the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. That was where he advocated for global financial flows to support climate goals. Brookfield Asset Management, they're massive in ESG investing strategy. They hold assets in fossil fuels and in renewables. And then he's also the co-chair of GFANZ, the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, where he, again, pushes for alignment of private finance with net zero goals. Now, here's where that all gets incredibly misleading, though, because public good is definitely not the same as public benefit. And most of Mark Carney's work has been about steering capital markets towards the things that he is invested in, not at all directly in helping households or even securing energy affordability for that matter. And the push for ESG and climate finances prioritizes global financial goals that he is invested in over national affordability and energy security. Allegedly. GFANZ was also built for institutions, not at all for citizens, actually quite the opposite. It was built in order to keep people incredibly rich, to be incredibly lucrative and wealth-making, while at the expense, actually, of the general public. Because GFANZ exists to de-risk green investments for big banks. It's not to lower your heating bill. It's not to do anything at all to help you. ESG is a major one as well because it has not been universally effective at all. Actually, they've underperformed. They've lied. They've been caught in scandals. There's been lawsuits. People have been fired, and investors are pulling out and questioning its effectiveness. And Mark Carney has also personally been criticized for over-promising the power of finance to achieve emission reductions.
He is wrong when he says that the price on pollution, that is both fighting climate change and putting more money in people's pockets, is responsible for inflation.
Lest we forget that Mark Carney is the baby daddy of carbon taxes, right? It's his whole thing, carbon neutral, net zero, blah, blah, blah. Well, oopsies, turns out that being far right just means that you are right. And thankfully, it only took a few months until the rest of the country started to acknowledge that, because this came out from Stats Canada. The elimination of the consumer carbon price at the start of April significantly reduced energy costs, contributing to the overall decline in inflation.
Now, during the campaign, frankly, it was disappointing, the response from Mark Carney on the campaign trail. For instance, we said, we don't have to need to scrap C-69, the so-called No More Pipelines bill. He said no. We're going to have to scrap the hard cap on emissions. He said no. We said you'd have to scrap the federal industrial carbon tax. He said no. We said you need a hard approval project for approvals of 6 months. He said 2 years. So it was fairly discouraging during the campaign. Now, having said that, sometimes what's said in a campaign and actually what gets implemented parties in government can be two very different things.
Sure.
There seems to be a continued desire from the Prime Minister to build LNG facilities, to build pipelines, as he likes to say, at a scale never seen before, at a pace never seen before. Now, how that's going to get done, he has a very clear fork in the road.
Anyway, switching gears just a little bit to Donald Trump, who made a pretty intense announcement that is just such a reminder of the absolute incompetence we have here in Canada.
Today, it's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subjects' consent. They take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent or anything else. And very importantly, this includes for forgeries generated by artificial intelligence known as deepfakes. We've all heard about deepfakes. I have them all the time, but nobody does anything. I asked Pam, can you help me, Pam? She says, no, I'm too busy doing other things. Don't worry, you'll survive. But a lot of people don't survive. That's true, and it's so horrible. With the rise of AI image generation, countless women have been harassed with deepfakes and other explicit images distributed against their will. This is the wrong, and it's just so horribly wrong. And it's a very abusive situation, like in some cases people have never seen before.
The Take It Down Act has been signed into law by Donald Trump and also his wife, Melania, who she was very much a spearhead of getting this to be top priority for their administration. And what it does is it criminalizes the non-consensual sharing of any explicit content, including AI-generated deepfakes. Social platforms and websites must remove reported imagery within 48 hours or face penalties. So it is officially illegal and punishable by law to engage in that sort of activity online. This is absolutely the right step to make. Most importantly, to hold people accountable, to have there be consequences for the things that you do that are so unbelievably disruptive to the lives around you. Now, in Canada, this is just such a glaring reality because to combat the exact same thing, we have the Online Harms Act. And that act is essentially, once you actually read through it, and gosh darn, these people are so good at writing bills, because the first section and the bottom section of the bill are all about protecting children, but the entire contents of the middle are not. And they do that on purpose so that they can then say, oh, see, yeah, conservatives, they don't want to protect your children, because most people aren't going to go read through the entire proposed legislation. Now, Bill C-63 was essentially dead after the House was prorogued, but they are bringing it back, and Stephen Guilbeault is in charge of it. And Bill C-63 is not about protecting your children. There are already laws in place to do that. It is about free speech, it is about censorship, and it is about limiting the access that Canadians have and having people self-censor, where you can be awarded thousands of dollars for reporting somebody who might commit a hate crime speech or something, which is crazy because we don't have free speech, but we certainly do have hate crimes here in Canada that are very loosely defined. It is absolutely outrageous how vaguely these things are written. And we also don't have accountability in this country either, because what happens if you get charged with something? Nothing, really. Actually, you're usually just let out. You might be on house arrest or something. There are no consequences for your actions in this country, and that was deliberately designed by the oh so very compassionate Liberal government who doesn't care about you. They care, by all accounts, only about the globalist utopia. Does not matter how much you suffer, does not matter how ridiculous and ludicrous their proposals are. All they care about is winning. And so they do things in order to silence dissent, in order to vilify dissent as well, so that they can continue winning on this moral, superior high ground that they're on above everybody else, solely because most Canadians, most of the public, will not pay attention to all of those tiny little details. And they've also vilified Donald Trump enough where most Canadians are still going to hate Donald Trump despite him passing this bill, which is exactly the accountability that we need in this country, that the Liberals simply will not give you, because chaos and fear provides them with a voter base, I guess. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Be sure to subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below, and I will talk to you tomorrow.